By the year 1500, Europe's most powerful nations were scrambling to explore the opportunities the New World provided, and none more so than Spain. In 1501, Spanish explorer Rodrigo de Bastidas landed in present-day Panama, opening the floodgates for Spanish colonization in Latin America. Spain began colonization in 1509, soon controlling all of Central America and a good portion of South America, including the northern region known as Colombia. In 1821, after 300 years of Spanish neglect, both Panama and Colombia seceded to form the Republic of Gran Colombia, highlighted in red. But nationalistic Panamanians slowly fostered the hope for independence and the will to secede once again, this time from Colombia. But the weaker Panamanians lacked the resources needed for a war of independence. These would need to be provided by a third party. In 1903, they received this support from none other than the United States of America. But was America's support of the Panamanian secession a democratic crusade or an imperialistic acquisition? Ever since the first Spanish explorers arrived, the prospect of a canal connecting the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans tantalized nations. The trip around Cape Horn was a long and dangerous one, but it was the only way to get around the obstacles South America presented. After the Industrial Revolution, the dream of the canal became a possibility. However, it also provided opportunities for strife between already war-weary nations. Some nations attempted to solve the problem before it began. In 1850, the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty was ratified by both the United States and Great Britain, both advanced and industrialized nations. John M. Clayton and Sir Lytton Bulwer negotiated the treaty in April 1850. Both nations saw the advantage of the canal. The treaty guaranteed the neutralization of the canal, declared that neither party could obtain or maintain exclusive control or an unequal advantage, stipulated that neither party would ever occupy, fortify, colonize, or assume control over Panama, and agreed that these three commands extended to other forms of practicable communications, including railways. 5 years after the treaty was ratified, the United States came closer to solving the problem of transporting goods through Panama than anyone before by completing the Panama Railroad, the first transcontinental railroad. It solved part of the problem because goods and passengers could safely be transported across Panama, but obviously still provided no solution to the long voyage around South America. Because the railroad served a similar purpose as a canal, all of the terms of the Clayton-Bulwer Treaty applied to the Panama Railroad. Towards the end of the 1800s, the dream was finally coming to fruition, or so it seemed. Ferdinand de Lesseps was the original director of a French Panama Canal project. He went to Panama to scope out possible routes in 1876, and the project was officially begun in 1880. The project was doomed from the start. Ferdinand de Lesseps was successful on his last project with the Suez Canal, but he lacked basic engineering experience that a canal across Panama would require. The Suez Canal was much longer than the proposed Panama Canal, but the land it was built on had a much lower altitude than Panama. Also, building a canal without a lock system was impossible. There were hundreds of feet between the sea levels of the Pacific Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. In 1898, after thousands of deaths, a string of failed directors, and a total lack of support from the French government and its people, the French company sold the project to the United States. At the same time in Panama, nationalism was rising among the people. A series of wars and disputes, compounded with the unstable Colombian government, caused the ill sentiment. José Domingo de Obadilla was elected to be governor of the Isthmus of Panama. He was supported by the separatist movement. He, along with José Agustín Arango, Dr. Manuel Amador Guerrero, General Nicanor de Abarrio, and several others, created a separatist network with the intent of negotiating a breakaway from Colombia. Dr. Manuel Amador Guerrero was given the task of traveling to America in hope of support from the States. He came at the right time. After purchasing the rights to the canal from the French, the United States was quick to explore the opportunities their purchase offered them. By 1903, the U.S. had drafted and ratified what became known as the Hay-Harran Treaty, named from U.S. Secretary of State John Hay and Tomas Harran of Colombia. It was a treaty that gave the U.S. the control of the canal area for an extended period of time, and at relatively small cost to the United States. On August 12, 1903, the Colombian government, hoping to revise some of the treaty, did not ratify it. The outraged U.S. was all too happy to receive the Panamanian separatists. The president at the time, Theodore Roosevelt, was one of the biggest activists supporting the canal, and would stop at nothing to get it. Around the same time as Dr. Guerrero's trip to America, Felipe Buenaventura, the chief engineer of the French Canal Company at the time, informed Roosevelt and Hay of the possibility of revolt, hoping that America would support the revolutionaries. Roosevelt quickly changed tactics, supporting the separation of Panama from Colombia instead of renegotiating the Hay-Haran Treaty. By November of 1903, a Panamanian rebellion was in full swing. On November 2, 1903, U.S. warships blocked Colombian troops from entering Panama to suppress the rebellion. This was Colombia's only possible invasion method, as it was impossible for them to go by land because of the dense jungle separating the two countries. The few Colombian troops that were stationed in Panama immediately surrendered. The very next day, Panama declared its independence, and the United States quickly recognized them as a new country. Shortly after Panama declared its independence, Felipe Buenaventura, who was also Panama's ambassador to the United States, signed the Hay-Buenaventura Treaty. This not only gave the United States the right to build a canal, it also gave them complete control of the canal area for the next 100 years. The building of the canal soon commenced, spurred on by the enthusiasm of Teddy Roosevelt, famous for his saying, "I'm gonna make the dirt fly." However, to avoid the illnesses that had plagued the French and caused the ultimate failure of their project, America first sent workers ahead to rid the area of yellow fever, malaria, and other diseases. They removed still water from drainage ditches and sprayed the surrounding area with pesticides. Workers poured in as America began what is sometimes referred to as the world's greatest engineering feat. In 1914, the canal was finally finished and began operation. It has been providing ships with a shorter route for almost 100 years. In the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter arranged for the early cancellation of the United States 100-year lease.
El honor de ceder la palabra al excelentísimo señor presidente de los Estados Unidos de América, señor Jimmy Carter.
We are here to participate in the signing of treaties which will assure a peaceful and prosperous and secure future for an international waterway of great importance to us all. But the treaties do more than that. They mark the commitment of the United States to the belief that fairness and not force should lie at the heart of our dealings with the nations of the world. If any agreement between two nations is to last, it must serve the best interest of both nations. The new treaties do that, and by guaranteeing the neutrality of the Panama Canal, the treaties also serve the best interest of every nation that uses the canal.
In 1999, the canal was finally given back to Panama. In conclusion, even though the revolution that separated Panama from Colombia was catalyzed by the United States to increase their global status and their overall capital, it created a host of political and economic reforms that still shape Latin America and our entire world today. The revolution brought about the building of the Panama Canal, which has forever changed the way in which goods are transported. Although new forms of transportation have since emerged, the Panama Canal is still a vital asset to Panama's economy and to global trading. Trade increased and, as a result, nations grew wealthier. Panama's revolution also gave rise to a brand new democracy amid an unstable region which still survives and thrives today. Even though America's actions were driven by imperialistic aspirations, in the long run, they proved to be an essential part in the creating of reforms that still impact the world today.